Buddy. My name is Angel Rivera, and I'm the host of Angel in the Afternoon. As you can see here, anyways, I'm the host of the show, and thank everybody for joining me today, this afternoon, whatever you want to call it. And there's no guest this week, unless there's a last second guest that pops up and interested in coming on. By all means, but as of now, there's no guest. Excuse me. So, yeah, what we're going to talk about today? Well, we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about the Aaron Bushnell. I keep wanting to call that poor guy Brunel, even though his name is Bushnell. And we're going to talk about the alleged attempted assassination of Tucker Carlson. We're going to talk about the Supreme Court taking up the case of Donald Trump, the presidential immunity case, and the meltdown from the liberal media, mainstream press, whatever you want to call it, and a couple other stories that's popped up last second. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Those are the things. I hope everybody's having a great day and about to have a great weekend. Hello, Gamer Thank Retro. Thank you for joining me tonight. If you haven't already, make sure to like the stream and to share it out. That helps quite a bit. And I'm going to get started in a moment. So let me just check. What? Just bear with me 1 second. I'm going to start right now. It's just. Let's see. Thank you for joining me. If you haven't already, make sure to like the stream. That helps out a lot with the algorithm. So if you can, also share it. That helps too. So let's see. Let me share my screen. This is not what I wanted. Here we go. Okay, so I'm running late as I usually am, so that's why I can't get straight into the stories because, whoops, as usual, I am never, ever set up properly, before the show starts. So just bear with me 1 second. I'm just about ready. I just had to go live at 7 because it was 7 exactly when I sat down here. So it was like, now I have no choice but to start. So this story I'm going to cover real quick this video because it literally just happened. So here we go. Hold on a second. Just bear with me. All right, there we go. So Giovanni Giorgio, but everybody calls me George Galloway. Yes, I will get to George Galloway in a moment. So I did not forget about him. So thank you very much for joining. Please like the stream, and thank you for joining me tonight. So we'll start with this real quick. I just saw this literally like 10 minutes before the show started. So it's Joe Manchin. He was being protested. We just called Joe Manchin a sick fuck. We humiliated him in front of herd of hardware elites. We held firm. He squared up. He held firm. Barbaric murderer, hideous fiend. He torches humanity and laughs. So he actually squares up to one of these guys. So I just saw. I was like, whoa. Hey, I'm D. Thank you for joining. Appreciate it. Nothing much. Just running late as usual. But I'm here.
Joe Manchin sold our futures and you got rich doing it. You sick fuck. How dare you?
There he is, squaring up to him. Damn, they shoved that dude to the ground. Right there. Wow.
I'm not going to sit down. You receive more funding than any other senator.
You made millions out of your position. You drive a Maserati.
Pipeline goes right through West Virginia, which are your constituents.
These people came here to support this pipeline. The pipeline they should support because it has energy going to.
Not your futures, not your profits. That pipeline will eventually be one of the many pipelines that will eventually get to everybody.
That's the sign for yourself.
We'll get back on track here, guys.
Protect our futures, not your profits. profits. Protect our future, not your profits. Protect our...
So that first dude here that was calling him a sick fuck, this dude, he got shoved to the ground. Right there. Whoops. Yeah, just straight up shoved him to the ground. Yeah, those are protesters. They're protesting Joe Manchin and a new pipeline that either being built or has been built. I don't know the exact details, but
Sold our futures and you've gotten rich doing it. You sick fuck. How dare you? You sold our...
I think that might be Joe Manchin's security because he got look, I got this, and then he just shoved him to the ground. He got his ass kicked there, but yeah, I mean they have, and that's the first story, and quite frankly, I mean that's good, I mean people like Manchin, our politicians, deserve to be protested. So yeah, I don't have much of an issue with that. In fact, there should be more protests against people like Manchin. So yeah, Deacon, he is a sick fuck. I actually do like that and agree with that, definitely. Where is my... here we go. Whoops. Oh, come on. All right, here we go. That's not what I wanted. Bear with me 1 second. I'm having... Where is it? Here it is. This is what I want. Why is this... All right, here we go. I don't know what the hell happened there. Yeah, it's supposed to snow. I mean, I'm in New Jersey, so I don't know if it's going to snow here or not, but it's definitely going to, it's definitely been windy the last few days. All right, here we go. So, as everybody knows, George Galloway was just elected to another term in Congress, Parliament, which is pretty much Congress, but, I didn't mean to say Congress. So, George Galloway hosted a television show, and now I assume he's going to continue hosting the show, at least I hope. Yeah, I like this show quite a bit. British PM Rishi Sunak, I think I butchered his name, but whatever, calls George Galloway's win in Rochdale beyond alarming. Funny he didn't find the 40,000 innocent civilians equally as alarming. Islamic extremists and the far rights are two sides of the same extremist coin. So that's his claim. And let's watch this. Not all of this, but...
In recent weeks and months, we have seen a shocking increase in extremist disruption.
Shocking increase.
And criminality. What started as protests on our street has descended into intimidation, threats, and planned acts of violence. Jewish children fearful...
Rashid Stanuk, is that how it's pronounced? Oh, thank you. Thank you, UK. Rashid Stanuk.
Uniform, lest it reveal their identity. Muslim women abused in the street for the actions of a terrorist group they have no connection with. Now our democracy itself is a target. Council meetings and local events have been stormed. MPs do not feel safe in their homes. Long-standing parliamentary conventions have been upended because of safety concerns. And it is beyond alarming that last night the Rochdale by-election returned a candidate who dismisses the horror of what happened.
This is he referring to George Galloway here.
On October the 7th, who glorifies Hezbollah and is endorsed by Nick Griffin, the racist former leader of the BNP. I need to speak to you all this evening because this situation has gone on long enough and demands a response not just from government, but from all of us. Britain is a patriotic, liberal, democratic society with a proud past and a bright future. We're a reasonable country and a decent people. Our story is one of progress, of great achievements and enduring values. Immigrants who have come here have integrated and contributed. They have helped write the latest chapter in our island story. They have done this without being required to give up their identity. You can be a practicing Hindu and a proud Briton as I am, or a devout Muslim and a patriotic citizen as so many are. or a committed Jewish person and the heart of your local community, and all underpinned by the tolerance of our established Christian church. We are a country where we love our neighbours and we are building Britain together. But I fear that our great achievement in building the world's most successful multi-ethnic, multi-faith democracy is being deliberately undermined. There are forces here at home trying to tear us apart. Since October the 7th, there have been those trying to take advantage of the very human angst that we
You get the point. He's smearing George Galloway as a racist and an anti-Semite. So it's the same old stuff we always hear from these elites, whether it be in London or Washington or New York. I mean, it's always the same bullshit with these people. Oh, he's an anti-Semite. Oh, by the way, he's also racist. Because he was allegedly endorsed by a racist. So, yep. So there you go. Just straight up smearing this man and calling him names and stuff. So, yep. So that's that. I'm sick of looking at that fucker. So let's see. Where is? Be nice if I'm organized, but like usual, I'm not. So let's see. Is it down here? Nope. All right. So Sanuk is full of it, and he's a Zionist. Yep. George Galloway's a decent person. I agree. All right. So if I can find what I'm looking for, that'd be nice. I know I have so many bookmarks that it's like. So okay, here it is. I think. Yeah. So as everybody knows, I think Saturday or Sunday there was Aaron Bushnell was had self-immolated over the Palestine Israel Palestine war, and he yelled out while on fire, "Free Palestine, free Palestine, free Palestine, free Palestine, free Palestine." I'm sure you guys have seen the video a million times at this point, so I don't really see a reason to play the video or anything like that. But I will play a couple of videos that I found, of other servicemen in the military that been inspired by Aaron Bushnell, and this is the first one. Oh, excuse me. So, if not now, this is American Jews organizing our community to end support of the U.S. support for the Israel's apartheid system. So this is an organization trying to end Jewish people, ending the apartheid in Israel or in Gaza. Sorry. Breaking, if not now, DC directly confronted the head of the Air Force about America's role in slaughtering people of Gaza, called on him to acknowledge Aaron Bushnell's death. General Alvin just smirked. So that's all he did. And this is not long.
The deaths of tens of thousands of Palestinians, others, and one of your own airmen. Say his name. Say his name. Ceasefire now.
30,000 Palestinians killed, 2/3 women and children. Say his name, Aaron Bushnell. Ceasefire now. Ceasefire now.
There's that smirk right there they're referring to. You see the general there, just smirking.
So when we look at the pacing challenge and
the Biden administration deployed Air Force team to Israel to assist with targets, documents suggest. Guidance for officers deployed to Israel appears to show the U.S. military providing intelligence for airstrikes in Gaza. So, yeah, the U.S. is sending Air Force to for quote-unquote guidance for the Israelis in order to bomb. So I'm saying quote-unquote because I wouldn't be surprised if it turned out the U.S. Air Force is directly bombing Gaza at this point.
that are advancing against us, those capabilities.
All right, so that's that. Say his name. They won't. In fact, the U.S. military is probably openly trying to, just ignore this whole situation and hope that he just goes away. Because as people know, This self-immolation happened during the Vietnam War. I mean, there's at least two or three people who self-immolated during the entire 1960s. I think one did it in 1964, and the war went on for another 10 years. So it's not, I mean, if this is going to work, I mean, it's going to take a long time before it ever works. So I, before I play this, I mean, I just wanted to say the reason why I hadn't really talked much about Aaron Bushnell this week on Twitter is because I was conflicted. At first, I thought that he's definitely what he did was brave. I'll tell you that much. It was 100% brave, and something. I mean, to self-immolate and have and that's a terrifying and painful death. So bravery, absolutely. But at the same time, I didn't want to tell people, to openly say that because I didn't want other people, people who are mentally ill to start doing this. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I wanted my response to be more measured and I wanted to think about it and stuff. So he's definitely brave. He's definitely a hero, but I didn't want to, just be like jump into the bandwagon, before I thought about it and before I wanted to make sure that my opinion was the right one, or at least something I was comfortable with saying. So that's why I didn't talk about it before. The ghost of Henry Kissinger is back in my stream. Welcome. Please make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't, because that's all you're useful for right now for me. So let's now get back to this. This is from Abby Martin. Incredibly powerful moment to witness in Portland, where a dozen Iraqi and Afghanistan veterans, including my husband, Mike Prisner, whatever, I butcher names. I do it all the time, burned their uniforms in honor of Aaron Bushnell's sacrifice and called for active duty soldiers to protest and resist. Free Palestine.
Aaron Bushnell! Remember Aaron Bushnell! He is not alone! He is not alone! Remember Aaron Bushnell! Remember Aaron Bushnell! He is not alone! He is not alone! Remember Aaron Bushnell! Remember Aaron Bushnell! He is not alone! He is not alone! Remember Aaron Bushnell! Remember Aaron Bushnell! He is not alone! He is not alone! Remember Aaron Bushnell! Remember Aaron Bushnell! He is not alone! He is not alone! Remember Aaron Bushnell! Remember Aaron Bushnell! He is not alone! He is not alone! Remember Aaron Bushnell! Remember Aaron Bushnell! He is not alone! He is not alone! Remember Aaron Bushnell! Remember Aaron Bushnell! He is not alone! He is not alone! Remember Aaron Bushnell! Remember Aaron Bushnell! He is not alone! He is not alone! Remember Aaron Bushnell! Remember Aaron Bushnell! He is not alone! He is not alone!
Yep. So they're all burning their these are veterans of the Afghanistan and Iraq war. They're all burning they're all burning their uniforms in solidarity with Aaron Bushnell, and honestly, you need more of this at this point. I mean, I don't know whether it'll lead to US service members actually rebelling, but for now at least, this is a good protest. And these protests, I hope they will continue, and I hope that they will they will lead to some action, even if it's small. But for now, this is important. I like this. Hold on. Let me- Aaron Bushnell would never be forgotten. I will no longer be complicit in genocide. This is a cool photo here, so they need to step up. Their voices can move mountains. Yeah, but it's I mean, the military is built on following the chain of command, and and listening to your superiors no matter what. So it's discipline. It's hard for these people, these brave men and women, to actually, go against their commanding officers. By the way, I just called them brave. I just realized that, but at the same time, if I'm telling them, well, most of them won't go against their chain of command or their commanding officer, then that's not really brave. But you get my point. I'm so used to calling them brave. I've been caught up in the propaganda that I ended up calling, just saying they're brave men and women. So yeah, I caught myself there, and I backtracked, but still, I mean, the propaganda is so pervasive, and I've heard our brave men and women so many times in the last 25 years and throughout my life that it's difficult, to deprogram yourself from saying that type of stuff. So I'm looking for, I can't find it right now, but I saw a tweet about how there was hi CBC, thank you for joining us. Please like it if you haven't already. Appreciate it. But I just see a tweet about how allegedly Aaron Burnell, I keep calling him Burnell, Bushnell, mother saying that her son was mentally ill, and she tried to get him help, but she wouldn't get him help, so she couldn't get him help. I mean, he wouldn't take it, so that she feels bad that her son did that, and he was mentally ill. Look, I don't know much about his mother, I mean, and so I can't really say whether what the hell was. I don't know what she was. I don't know her son. I don't know her, but it was. I just saw that tweet. I'm like, okay, so allegedly it's his mother. I don't know whether it actually his mother or not, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, I mean, he would. I don't know whether it. Excuse me. I don't know what's going on there, but yeah, I just wanted to report that because I mean, I think it's fair, to say allegedly his mother said he was mentally ill, but it didn't seem mentally ill. Everything I seen, he knew he knew exactly what he was doing and why. And and now that's why, I'm excited to, cover him, and more people should cover him, and more people should, follow his example. I'm not saying you should self-immolate. I mean, that was an extreme protest. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is we should all follow example and continue to resist the Israeli entrance into Palestine, and continue to resist that. So just wanted to read this real quick. I think this was Aaron Burnell's last Facebook post, which is being quoted here. It's so important to imagine a better world. Let your thoughts run wild with idealistic dreams of what the world should look like, what the world should look like, and let the pain and anger at how it's not that way flow through you. Let it be free your mind and fuel your rage against the machine. Aaron Bushnell. So that was I think his last Facebook post, I would assume, because I don't want to just, but that was his last Facebook post, I believe. I remember reading that. So it's not the first time I saw that. So I remember somebody saying that was his last Facebook post. So I don't mind, reading that. And I think it's a well written paragraph, and it's better than what I would write because I'm not much of a writer. So yeah. And I also wanted I also wanted to discuss, yesterday on INN we had a interview with or Indy had an interview with workers from the Amazon labor union, and why it's and let me get to that real quick, okay, before I move on to the next story. Let's see, where is it? Yeah, here it is. So I advise everybody to watch this. I mean, this was a very oh, if I actually shared my screen, that'd be nice. I mean, I never, I don't have a producer. I do this myself. So yeah, So this is the live stream that happened yesterday. I think it's I think they talk about the issues that they had with the labor union and Chris Smalls in particular, and all the disorganization and negligence by the union, and the leadership and stuff. So you guys can have your own opinion about Chris Smalls and the union, but I think that these voices should be heard, and and it's very important that I would recommend everybody watch this stream. It's actually it's 2 hours and 20 minutes, but I do recommend everybody watch it. I even watched it. I watched the full 2 hours and 20 minutes, which I never do. I don't, because I'm ADD, so I never can watch a video all the way through. And I watched this all the way through today. It was a very poignant, very of an important conversation to have. And I want to make something clear. INN is not against Chris Smalls, or INN is not against the union. It's just that we think it's important for the union to be as strong and as and have everybody together, so we can go, we can fight Amazon. Amazon quickly becoming one of the biggest corporations in the world. Hell, it's bigger than Apple. I mean, Apple is a gigantic corporation, and here comes Amazon, who's even bigger than Apple. They just bought a hospital recently, and they're trying to move into the hospital market, and they've now fill your prescriptions, and I wouldn't be there. And now they're apparently, they're making a deal with Hyundai to start selling their vehicles. So I know, yeah, Indy talked about this in the stream yesterday. They're about to sell cars. I think it's Hyundai. I'm pretty sure they're coming to a deal with. It's one of the biggest corporations in the world. In fact, probably the biggest. I would argue, even bigger than Apple. So it's important for us, all of us, not if you even if you don't work for Amazon, all of them, all of you, just all of us. I mean, to stand together and help the ALU, the union, become as strong as possible. And if you want my personal opinion on Chris Smalls, he's he's not a leader. He's more of a follower. He's not really a follower, but he's more about himself. Obviously. I mean, he's like, I've called him on Twitter a cosplay activist. I mean, this guy, after he initially unionized, his old plant, all he did was JFK 8, I believe it's called. I could be wrong with that, but I know it's JFK. So once he unionized his plant, he just became a celebrity and started traveling for weeks and months at a time. The union, the rank and file could never get a hold of him, and even if they did, he didn't give much direction. And then he had his fellow, there's so much stuff that's going on there. Watch the whole stream. I mean, because I've summarized it the best I can, but there's just a lot of issues with that union and problems. And so I think it's the conversation needed to be had. And I watched all of it last night, and I not last night, this morning. I couldn't watch it live because I was busy, but I definitely watched it this morning. So it is up to us to stand with ALU and demand, and not just with the employees, but demand new leadership of that union. Chris Smalls is useful still for that union as the face of the union with no real power. I mean, just have him out there, do public relations and appearances. He's good at that. He's uh he's a well-spoken man. He's has charisma. He's good at that. He should just do that. Not worry about actually running the union and organizing, because he's obviously not really good at that, or has no interest of doing that, obviously. So I'm gonna link the full live stream here in the chat for everybody to check out on your own time after the show, of course. And I think I recommend everybody who haven't watched it already to watch it. So there it is. It should be in the chat now. I think it's in. I recommend everybody watching it, or recommend everybody to watch it, because I think it's that important, and that I think it's that important because we all need to to fight with them, as I said before. So let's get to the next story now. In fact, I wasn't even. I'm glad I didn't even know about the stream until earlier last night. So I'm like, oh shit, okay, this is very important. I'm definitely going to talk about it briefly tomorrow. So let's get to, where is it? Oh, it's up here. I mean, here it is. Thank you, Cowboy. Appreciate you coming on. If you haven't already, make sure you like everybody because it's, it helps with the stream. Like I said a million times already, but so apparently Tucker Carlson was allegedly a victim, nearly a near victim of assassination in Russia when he was out there. So I'm going to read this and I'm going to play the video real quick and I'll give my thoughts afterwards. Breaking: a man has reportedly been arrested in Moscow in connection with attempted assassination of Tucker Carlson. The arrested individual confessed to being a part of a terrorist cell coordinated by Ukrainian handlers aiming to target Tucker Carlson during his visit to Moscow. The plan involved utilizing an improvised explosion device, IED, to target Tucker Carlson's vehicle in the underground parking lot of the Four Seasons Hotel. In his interrogation, Vasiliev recounted receiving instruction and the location of the IED, but said he was arrested before committing the attack. He also mentioned that his Ukrainian handlers promised him $4,000 for a successful execution of the attack. So, oops. No, not that. I didn't mean to do that. Yeah.
88 года рождения, уроженец Подольска. В ноябре 23 года был завербован сотрудником ГУР Украины через сеть интернет. Проходил обучение работе со спецсвязью, сбору подрыва взрывных устройств, а также работе с тайниками. 31 января куратор получил задание забрать с тайника взрывное устройство и использовать его для подрыва автомобиля.
Что вам обещали?
Здесь вознаграждение $4000.
Где должно было быть применено взрывное устройство?
На подземной парковке отеля «Фашизм» в Москве. Необходимо было забрать взрывное устройство из тайника и заложить его под автотранспорт.
Против кого планировалось применить взрывное устройство?
Ну, сообщили.
Сейчас вы знаете, кто был целью?
Да, американский журналист Такер Карлсон.
Что пошло не так?
На этапе подготовки был задержан, содеянным раскаиваюсь.
Well, yeah, that was the video. This is the alleged, this is the alleged man who tried to assassinate Tucker Carlson in Russia. Quite frankly, in my opinion, I think that this is, real. I mean, there's no reason why for the Russians to make this up and just randomly grab this guy and force him to confess. So, yeah, I think, this is, I think it definitely happened. I mean, it's not like this man, they had no reason to make this up. People immediately start claiming that the Russians, made this up, or they just grabbed this guy and they tried to kill, allegedly, just forced them into confessing into something he didn't do for reasons, because like I said, because he had no reason to do this. Like there's absolutely no reason to do this for the Russians. Richie, I appreciate you being here. I was wondering where you're at, but I didn't realize Jimmy was live until just now. So I appreciate you being here, coming on coming on now, because I don't expect if Jimmy's on, I get it, but I didn't realize he was even on, so that's why. But yeah, I'm glad you're here right now, and you can watch the rest of the show. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think that the Ukrainians tried to kill, try to assassinate Tucker Carlson. So this is another one. A man had been arrested by security services here in Moscow for plotting an assassination attempt on Tucker Carlson. The man is from Polodiski, that town right there, whatever. Podolsk, let me say it like that, and he was acting on instructions from Ukraine's SBU, which I assume is their intelligence service. He claims that he was promised over $4,000 for successfully completing the task, bombing Tucker's car. Tucker also claimed that NSA bugged his email and phone. So yeah, that claim he claimed that before when he was at Fox News for the first time. When the first time he attempted to interview Putin, he claimed that the NSA tapped his phone and leaked his text to the New York Times, which of course they gladly ran with because they are the puppets of the intelligence agencies alongside most of the corporate media. So oh yeah, Jimmy was on late. Okay, well I appreciate you coming on. If you knew you just came on from Jimmy or whatever, make sure you like. It's again, that's like the fifth time I've said it. I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but I need those likes. I need those likes. So yeah, I appreciate everybody liking the stream and hanging out with me today. So yeah, I think that the Ukrainians tried to kill Tucker Carlson because he dared to interview Vladimir Putin. And if you guys remember, they as soon as this happened, they put Tucker Carlson on their assassination list. So yeah, I'm wondering. So yeah, so they put him on their assassination list, and it seems like they're acting on it. That's the scary part. They're acting on it because if this is what actually happened, which is true, then then they're actually acting on this, and it's kind of horrifying. If you ever travel abroad, or at least to Eastern Europe, the Ukrainians or Russia, they can get to you. So I'm not on their assassination list. I mean, as far as I know, but and I'm not on their list. Thank you for liking, but yeah, So let's see. Now I'm going to move on to Donald Trump and the fact the Supreme Court had decided to hear the case, about presidential immunity. Right now, of course, liberal media is melting down over this because, as you know, the trial was supposed to start in March for his quote unquote insurrection with Jack Smith prosecuting. It's supposed to start in March, but because the Supreme Court decided to take on this case, they delayed the case indefinitely. So now what I'm going to do, that's good. Yeah. So I'm going to share this and I'm going to do this. Oh no. Okay. No, it's good. So this is basically what seems to be the argument. Article 2, presidential immunity to criminal and civil suits. I'm going to read this real quick because I think this is the actual argument from Trump's attorneys on why he should be immune from prosecution. Criminal prosecution, at least. The Constitution doesn't directly address presidential immunity for criminals or from criminal or civil lawsuits. Instead, this privilege has been developed over time through Supreme Court's interpretation of Article 2, Section 2, Clause 3 of the Constitution. The president should have power to fill up all vacancies that may happen during the recess of the Senate by granting commissions which shall expire at the end of their session. The idea of presidential immunity gained significant media attention in recent years as former officials in the Trump administration were subpoenaed in investigation by Congress. But this legal doctrine dates back to the 1860s, which is true. So let's go down here. Development of presidential immunity doctrine. By the way, presidential immunity, presidents have had immunity for decades. It's de facto immunity. Nobody traditionally, the new president, the incoming administration doesn't prosecute the previous administration. And this famously happened when Obama first became president in 2009. If you remember the infamous statement, we don't look back, we look forwards. If you remember that one, that was Obama refusing to prosecute George W. Bush and Dick Cheney for their crimes. So U.S. presidents have had de facto immunity for decades. And now all of a sudden Trump is taking it to the logical conclusion. The logical conclusion being, okay, now we should make this official. We should have the Supreme Court, hopefully for him to rule that the president does have immunity from prosecution. And even if they leave office, the Department of Justice can't touch them. So I'll give my opinion, my wannabe legal opinion in a minute. But for now, I'm just going to read a little bit of this. In Mississippi versus Johnson. This is the state of Mississippi versus President Andrew Johnson, or he's out of office, president. But, the former president, whatever. In 1867, the Supreme Court placed the president beyond the reach of judicial direction, either affirmative or restraining in the exercise of his powers, whether the Constitution or statutory, political, or otherwise, save the perhaps what must be a small class of powers that are really miscentennial, whatever that word means, an application for an injunction to forbid President Johnson to enforce the Reconstruction Acts on the ground of their unconstitutionality was answered by Attorney General Sanders, blah, blah, blah. The court refused. So yeah, this is the history of presidential immunity. So I want to go down here. All right, here we go. Present throughout the Watergate crisis and unsolved by it, it was the question of amendability of the president to criminal prosecution prior to conviction upon impeachment. It was argued that the impeachment clause necessarily required indictment and trial in a criminal proceeding to follow successful impeachment, and that a president in any event was uniquely immune from indictment. These are the arguments that were advanced as one ground to deny enforcement of the subpoenas running to the president. Assertion of the same argument by Vice President Angu was controverted by the government through the Solicitor General, but as to the president, it was argued that a number of constitutional and practical reasons he was not subject to the ordinary criminal process. Jeez, I mean that was a long one, but that's basically the argument on why Donald Trump thinks that, or wants the court to rule that he's immune from prosecution. So now I'm going to get to the media's reaction, because there's an epic meltdown here from the media. So I'm going to start with this. It's a Lincoln Project video demanding that Clarence Thomas drop out because allegedly his wife was involved in the alleged coup attempt in January 6th, which, as I talked about many times on this show, was not a coup. It was a protest that turned into a riot. So it's a protest that went wrong, basically. So allegedly, there was in
the past. I think people are rebelling, and there's a big title.
Oops.
I think the Democrats are pretty.
So I'm going to play this real quick because, it's funny, it's ridiculous. So let's check this out.
Justice Clarence Thomas is compromised. On January 19th,
he's compromised.
2022, Thomas was the only Supreme Court justice willing to help Trump and his allies hide from justice over the January 6th insurrection.
Not an insurrection.
Thomas did not hide that he was willing to grant Trump's request for secrecy, but it wasn't just to protect Trump and his conspirators. It was to protect his wife, Ginny Thomas.
His wife. He wants to protect his wife, from prosecution, even though she's not even been indicted or charged or anything. So why would Thomas need to protect her?
A radical right-wing activist, Ginny Thomas has openly applauded rebellion in the past. I think people are rebelling, and there's a big tidal wave coming.
Well, that's taken out of context, because what she obviously means there that rebelling means like protest and going out in the streets, But of course, the Lincoln Project takes it out of context to mean that, oh, she's in favor of insurrection and a coup. She wants insurrection. So that's taken out completely out of context, I'm sure.
I think the Democrats are pretty worried about what's coming. And the lead up to January 6th was no different. Ginny Thomas used her direct line to Trump's White House to push for the overturning of a free and fair election. Even attending the rally.
It wasn't free and fair, as I'm sure everybody knows by now. These mail-in ballots were just nonsense. There were stories about how they would just mail out these ballots to address where nobody lived, and abandoned houses and stuff like that. So we don't know who voted. We don't know how they voted. We don't know anything about that election. So to call it a free and fair election is just a goddamn joke.
Rally that would ultimately end in an attack on the U.S. Capitol. None of this would be known if Justice Thomas had gotten his way. The January 6th Commission can't do their job if one of the most powerful men in the country is using his seat to protect his best friend? Clarence Thomas.
But his wife has not been charged with anything. Why would he have to protect his wife or best friend, as they put it there, if she hasn't been charged with a crime? I mean, it just makes no sense.
Must recuse himself because he took an oath to protect the Constitution, not his wife.
So yeah, if she allegedly if Clarence Thomas has to recuse himself for reasons, because allegedly he's trying to protect his wife, even though it makes no sense because, as I said already, she's not been charged with a crime. So why would he have to protect his wife? I don't know. You guys, I guess, can tell me, your theories. But the Lincoln Project just being ridiculous as usual, with the scary music and Trump supporters like, like being the tough guy that did, having all these Trump supporters and breaking down Congress and stuff, and excuse me, and breaking down Congress, and isn't that so horrible, guys? So we got MSNBC here, of course. They're gonna melt down, and I have a few clips. So this is the first one. This woman here is Nicole Wallace. If you don't know her, she was in the Bush administration. Yes, MSNBC, the so-called liberal channel, hired Nicole Wallace, former Bush administration official, communications official, to host a show on the liberal network. So yes, Nicole Wallace is an MSNBC host. And let's see, these people are jokes. That's definitely true, Witchy. Let's see. They know we don't have a democracy. We have a fascist oligarchy. Yep. So let's get to this clip first. Nicole Wallace, MSNBC, just broke. This is when the story just broke, and she and her guest is a judge, some kind of former federal judge. So, and of course he's against Trump. So let's watch their initial reaction to the news that Supreme Court decided to take up Donald Trump's presidential immunity claims.
The second we threw to that soundbite, which I'm glad you got a chance to hear, we received the breaking news that the United States Supreme Court, the subject of our first story in the last hour, has just announced that it will hear Donald Trump's immunity case. It will hear that case on April 22nd. So, Judge Ludig, I know this is a curveball, but I know a little bit about your intellect watching you testify before the January 6th Select Committee, so I'm going to throw you this curveball. Your reaction to the news just breaking in the last couple minutes that the United States Supreme...
Why would he testify in a January 6th commission unless he was there? But I don't know this judge.
Court will hear Trump's immunity case.
I mean, I can't hear this.
Well, thank you for having me with you this afternoon, Nicole. I'm just hearing this moment.
I just heard it in my ears.
I just heard this. Yeah, I mean, as David says in the chat, he looks like he's gonna cry. I mean, he does. I mean, I just noticed that too, and I saw it in the chat. So he's like this. Hold on. He's like this. I just heard that, the news. I don't have much of a reaction. I'm just gonna, look like I'm gonna cry here for a few minutes.
Look, this is a momentous decision just to hear this case. There was no reason in this world for the Supreme Court to take this case.
Sure there is. Absolutely is a reason to take it up. Presidents have had de facto immunity for decades. They refuse to prosecute each other. It's like an informal agreement. So now Trump is taking it to his logical conclusion, which is, okay, let's make this official. Let's have the Supreme Court sure rule that all presidents are immune from prosecution, including him. So he's taking that informal agreement to his logical conclusion, and they don't like this. The elite in Washington and New York, they don't like this at all because they want the agreement to remain formal. They don't want the Supreme Court to have to rule that, yes, Donald Trump and U.S. presidents, including Trump, have immunity from prosecution. So that ends all the cases, not just the Jack Smith cases, but it also ends. No, I believe it doesn't because it only applies to federal cases. I have to look into that to be sure, but It ends all the federal cases against Trump. And they don't want that because that's the only hope they have to, to make sure he doesn't, to get him out of the race.
The three-judge panel of the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia had written a masterful opinion.
Yeah, it was masterful. I mean, basically, the Court of Appeals basically fully dismissed the case. So obviously, Trump appealed to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court took up the case in late April, which means that it's very likely they can issue a ruling in June, because that's when the Supreme Court's their session ends, because they're only in session 6 months out of the year. So they take their summers off and they come back in September. How convenient. I mean, again, the part-time job of a Supreme Court justice is ridiculous. They work like 6 or 9 months out of the year. Then they work part-time. They don't hear cases full-time. They only hear a certain amount of cases per session. So they decided to hear this case. Jack Smith wanted them initially to hear the case immediately, but they turned him down and they decided to take their time, and they're hearing the case in the week of April 22nd, which means that the ruling comes down in June. That trial wouldn't start until October, November at the earliest, maybe even after the election. So this is why they're all very upset, because even if the Supreme Court rules that no, presidents don't have immunity from prosecution, that means that even then Trump has to have time to prepare his defense. He has to have time for motions. He has to have time to choose a jury. So this trial won't start until like late at the end of the year. So either right before the election or after the election, which is why they're very upset, because this is the only chance they had to get rid of Trump. And the Supreme Court said, no, we're going to take our times in hearing this case. Talking too much.
Denying that the president's claims of absolute immunity. Under the Constitution and the laws of the United States, there's never been an argument that a former president is immune from prosecution for crimes that he committed while in office.
Yes, that agreement was de facto. No president prosecuted each other. Hell, Richard Nixon wasn't even prosecuted. Gerald Ford, he resigned, and Gerald Ford immediately pardoned him. So there's no, there was no official agreement, but it's definitely de facto. They followed that tradition, not prosecuting each other.
On the more practical level, of course, the Supreme Court is capable of deciding this very quickly in time that the former president could be tried before the election. But
that's exactly what they're worried about. They won't be able to try him before the election. So yeah, what these people, they ultimately are indirectly admitting to is they don't trust the American people to not elect Donald Trump again. That's what they're deathly afraid of. Like they don't trust the American people, and they wanna decide the election by getting rid of Trump from the ballot, and by making sure that the American people don't have the option to vote for Donald Trump. So, as Witchy says, Biden's committing war crimes. They're going to prosecute him. Of course not. He's a part of the club. He's not going to prosecute it. Just like Obama wasn't prosecuted. Obama literally killed 2 American citizens extrajudicially. There was no trial. There was no nothing. He found him guilty. He was judge, jury, and executioner and killed 2 Americans extrajudicially using drones. Obama wasn't even prosecuted. Hell, nobody even mentioned it when he left office. He was a fantastic president. His legacy is intact as one of the greatest presidents of all time, which is a joke, but that's what everybody in the media wants you to believe. Even though he extrajudicially executed 2 Americans. So now let's get to this complete meltdown. Radical leftist Elie Mystal, which if you know this guy, if you even remotely watch MSNBC, explodes on MSNBC over Supreme Court decision to hear Trump's immunity case in April, calls on the White House and the media to draw the line, to wage war, to help stop Republicans, not conservatives, in the court. He said blah 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 blah. So I'm not going to read that. I'm going to actually play this because I'm tired of reading.
The reason why people like Mark and people like Dahlia seem to have a crystal ball is because they're real, because they're realists, and they understand the court for what it is. And at some point, people in the media, people at home, and people sitting in the White House have to stop pretending that the Supreme Court is some kind of benign, trying to do its best institution and start to realize that there are 6
He's very angry. I mean, you can see it in his hand movements and in his cadence. He's very angry.
Republicans, not conservatives, Republicans on the Supreme Court who view it as their job to help the Republican Party. And
There's no evidence for any of that, but I mean, he's a partisan. He hates Republicans. He hates conservatives. So that's why he's saying that.
Until we do something about that, until we take away that power, until we draw the line on them there, they will.
So what? What are you talking about? Take away their power? Take away judicial review? That's basically what. You cannot review any of these cases. You can only review these. So judicial review is very important in order to to make sure the other branches of government don't go too far. Now all of a sudden, Elie Mystal and other liberals. Oh my God, that that when I stopped the video, it looks terrible. I mean, look at that. I mean, but I'm gonna be real quick, then I'll play it. But what was my point? Something I forgot because I looked at his face and it scared the shit out of me. So I'm just gonna finish this.
Will continue to do this. They will help Trump. They will take away abortion rights. They will end affirmative action. They will liberalize gun rights. They will do all of it until we stop them. And
yeah, how are you gonna stop them? I don't know what he's talking about there. Until we stop them, how? I mean, are you going? I don't understand how. What he's like? Oh yeah, we got to stop the Supreme Court. We got to do this, and we're gonna fight them. We're gonna fight them. How? I don't know, but he wants to fight the Supreme Court. Oh, excuse me. So this is a tweet that I sent out. Excuse me. Sleepy. But I'll finish the show. I'll be fine. And I've said this now on the show, but I'm gonna repeat it here. SCOTUS needs to settle the question of presidential immunity. Presidents have had de facto immunity for decades now. It is an important question to settle, which I said on Twitter. Now I've said on the show again because I was responding to this clip, which was Rachel Maddow calls the Supreme Court decision to hear Trump immunity argument BS. She adds that for you to say this is something the court needs to decide because it's something that's unclear in the law, it's just flagrant. It's just flagrant bullpucky. So, yeah, this goes because the original segment, which I saw, went over 10 minutes, and it's basically Rachel Maddow just having a meltdown on Chris Hayes' show. So she's very angry that the Supreme Court decided to hear this case in April. Late April, So again, I'm not going to repeat myself in my point, but yeah, they're very angry, that how dare the Supreme Court ruin our chance to prosecute Trump. That's basically what all these clips are about.
Is really presidential immunity an open question? Because what's the most famous pardon in American history? Gerald Ford pardoning Richard Nixon once he had resigned and was a former president. Why did Gerald Ford pardon Richard Nixon? Quote, as a result of certain acts or omissions occurring before his resignation as president, meaning as a result of stuff he did while president, quote, Richard Nixon has become liable to possible indictment and trial. Right. Whether or not he shall be so prosecuted depends on findings of the appropriate grand jury and the discretion of the authorized prosecutor.
Which they didn't prosecute him because he was pardoned. So they were going to prosecute him, right, Rachel? And so he was pardoned, and they say, we can't prosecute him. So, yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, they're angry about something that needs to be settled. It needs to be settled because once Trump made this claim, there's going to be other U.S. presidents to make this claim. So, later on, because Democrats and liberals open Pandora's box, which is going after Trump and prosecuting Trump. They open Pandora's box. Now, all of a sudden, if Trump gets back into the White House, he's going to start prosecuting Democrats and liberals for their crimes. And then once Trump leaves office, they'll try to prosecute him, and they'll get hearings against him. They opened Pandora's box. It wasn't Trump. It wasn't the Republicans. They did, because they were so desperate to get rid of Donald Trump, and they thought, Well, I mean, he's leading in the polls. Joe Biden can barely function. He looks like his brain is melting in front of us, and he wants another 4 years in office. So we can't. Trump is not losing in the polls; he's winning. So we have to get rid of him somehow. We don't trust the American people to reelect Joe Biden. So we have to get rid of Donald Trump from the polls. What are they going to do? Of course, they're going to disqualify him from the ballot over the 14th Amendment, which is the disqualification clause over insurrection. Even though there's no evidence Trump committed insurrection, even though he's not been charged with insurrection, and still judges around the country, I think in Colorado, Maine, and I forget the other state, Illinois. That's what it is. They're trying. The judges already disqualified Trump from the ballot. So yeah, I mean, so that didn't work because most likely the Supreme Court is going to overturn that. Now the presidential immunity question popped up, and they are. I don't know how they're going to rule on that. Do I think the president has immunity from prosecution? No. In my personal opinion, after reading everything, I don't think that the president has this immunity from prosecution. But at the same time, the Supreme Court has the right to hear the case and to settle, make sure it's settled law. So yeah, there's no reason for Rachel Maddow and MSNBC to be this angry. Like I said, the only reason why, which I'm repeating myself, but I need to make sure this is known, is because they want to prosecute Trump. They want a conviction before Election Day, which they think there's going to be a conviction. Doesn't mean there is going to be, but if the best case scenario for them is a conviction, and they can just remove Donald Trump from the ballot. What they're forgetting is even if he's convicted, he could still run. It's just happened before in American history. If you guys know your history, Eugene Debs ran for president in 19, I think it was 1912. No, it was 1916, I believe it was 1916. Yeah, and he ran for president from his jail cell because Woodrow Wilson put him in jail for violating it was a World War One law, which basically said you couldn't criticize the government or you couldn't criticize the government during wartime, which he was in jail for. He still ran for president, and he still got 1 million votes. So that was a big deal at the time. So Trump can still run for president, even if he's in jail or prison or whatever. So that they're forgetting about that. They think they can just get rid of Trump if he's in prison. They really can't. But they're trying. They're desperate. I mean, they're desperate, which is why they're all very angry. So let's continue with Rachel Maddow's meltdown here.
So the idea that this is an open question, that it might be that a former president can never be tried for something that he did because he was president when he did it, is disproven by a plain reading of American history and the whole justification for Richard Nixon being pardoned in the first place. So the idea that this has to be taken up is them saying the sky is green.
Right.
And I think even for the non-lawyers among us to be able to say, you know what, the sky is not green even on our worst day, this is BS. You are doing this as a dilatory tactic to help your political.
Dilatory. I have no idea what that words mean. I guess it means delaying tactic, but just say delaying. I mean, she sounds like an overeducated Rhodes Scholar here with her gigantic words.
Friend, your partisan patron. And for you to say that this is something that the court needs to decide because it's something that's unclear in the law.
It is unclear. The U.S. presidents, like I said, have de facto immunity for decades. They don't prosecute each other. They refuse. And now Trump, like I said, I mean, I'm like a broken record now, is taking that to his logical conclusion, which is, make it official. U.S. presidents are immune. So I don't have to worry about being prosecuted once I leave office again in 4 years or 8 years.
It's just flagrant bullpucky, and they know it.
Bullpucky, ladies and gentlemen, not bullshit. For some reason, on MSNBC, you can't say bullshit. So you have to say bullpucky.
And they don't care that we know it, and that's disturbing about the future legitimacy of the court.
Oh, yeah, of course, because they ruled against me. They ruled against what I wanted to rule, so the court's illegitimate now. It's not the first time liberals have said this. Other liberals have said this, that because they rule against how I want them to rule, by definition, that must mean that they are illegitimate. A lot of conservatives make the same argument, too, when the Supreme Court rules against them. in their interests. All of a sudden now the Supreme Court is, illegitimate. So both sides do this, but liberals are more infamous, for just trying to discredit the court. So let's get to this one real quick. This is, oops, if I did this, it'd be nice. I had my son say bullhorns. Oh, that's better than bullpucky. I like that, bullhorns, because bulls actually have horns, so that makes sense. But let's get to this clip real quick. This is Andrew Weissman reacts to SCOTUS hearing Trump's presidential immunity case. I'm very pessimistic. These are quotes from his. So I'm actually not going to read that. I'm just going to watch it. Morning Joe.
Sarah, enjoy.
This is Joe Biden's favorite show. I mean, he said that quite a few times. This is Joe Biden's favorite show. So, of course, he's going to be watching the show at 5 or 6 a.m. in the morning, however time Morning Joe comes on. I have no interest in watching. But yeah, so I'm going to play this. It's 4 minutes long. I'm probably going to disappear, go to the bathroom. So I already watched this, so I don't need to watch it myself, but I'll be back in a minute.
And joining us now is NBC News legal analyst and former federal prosecutor Andrew Weissman. He is co-author of the new book, The Trump Indictments, the Historic Charging Documents, with commentary. Andrew, good morning. So I'm so curious to hear your reaction to this ruling that we heard yesterday, at least this idea that the Supreme Court is going to hear arguments on April 22nd. We know their decisions come down in late June. Then you can schedule a few months between June and whenever the trial might start. We're getting awfully close to Election Day at that point. So first of all, some have said this is just the Supreme Court saying we adjudicated this, we heard it, insulating itself from any criticism, and then perhaps ruling that no, the president does not have full immunity. What is your sense of things, number one? And number two, how long this may delay the trial?
Well, I'm very pessimistic. I do not have the view that they took this case because they're going to hand out a win to Donald Trump in the Colorado case, but here they're going to essentially give him a defeat by saying there is no presidential immunity in this case. Yes, of course, I think ultimately they will not grant immunity in this case, but they have given him the win because the D.C. case, let's just face it, is on life support now. It is really, really hard to figure out how this case gets to trial before the election. And I think that's the end result of what they did here. So they may ultimately say that he does not have immunity, but in fact, he will have been given immunity because the case will not go to trial before the election. Meaning if Joe Biden wins, the case goes forward, but if he loses, the case is over.
No, even if, let's say Joe Biden wins, which is unlikely, but let's say for a second he wins the election. They have no reason to prosecute him because he lost. So all these cases will probably quietly go away. Like, they'll be dismissed, or Donald Trump will, they'll give him some kind of sweetheart deal where he'll probably spend some time and on house arrest in Mar-a-Lago, and it'll be quiet and the media won't talk about it and everyone will just move on the merry way. So that's probably what's going to end up happening. Trump, even if he loses, that's what's going to happen. It isn't, all of a sudden, it isn't that Trump all of a sudden they're going to continue wasting their time prosecuting him because he's no risk to them anymore because he lost. So they're worried that he's going to win, which is why they desperately want to prosecute Donald Trump.
I think it's worth noting the other sort of big picture item is any normal politician, any person who was accused of a crime that they did not do would want to clear his name. And so what's happening here is the reason one thinks it's a win for Donald Trump is he's trying to avoid at all costs the facts of what happened that are charged in this indictment, that they do not get presented in court where facts actually matter and people will hear it. So he can continue to say publicly this is all just a smear campaign by his political adversary, and avoid actually having this confronted by a jury to assess those claims that he's making publicly.
Well, the Supreme Court's certainly helping, as you say, Donald Trump's legal team's strategy of delaying, kick it down the road, hope he wins.
That's exactly right, D. I mean, they all, created Donald Trump in New York. They all did. I mean, they all, they all praised him as a businessman. They all give him money because banks, I mean, the banks they not donated, but the banks loaned him money. They all gave him money. They all praised him. They all celebrated him. Hell, he did The Apprentice for over 10 years, and they all celebrated that. What a great show The Apprentice won. The Apprentice was on NBC for 10 years. Over 10 years, Trump did it. And now all of a sudden NBC hates Trump, even though they made tens of millions of dollars off him during The Apprentice. So yeah, just they now all of a sudden they hate him because he's running for president, and they don't like his policies, and they don't like the fact that that he did anything. They don't want him anywhere near the White House again.
He wins election and can make it disappear. But do you believe on the merits the Supreme Court made the right decision here to hear the arguments?
I don't. I think that this is such a frivolous argument. This is a case where even if you thought there might be some circumstance where a president could be immune with respect to certain actions that he takes within his or her official capacity, this is surely not the case. As Judge Ludig has said and actually submitted a brief, when you're dealing with the crimes that are alleged here, which is illegally staying in office, that is an absolute violation.
Which he didn't do. He left office. Like, what are we talking about here? He didn't do that. He stayed in office. I mean, he left office. Excuse me.
Of the Constitution. And so I think that this is really improvident. And by granting the stay, they essentially are saying that he is de facto immune. So I don't think they should have taken the case. And I think it ends up being that they've given a win to Trump here, and I think they're going to give a win to the Trump in the Colorado case as well.
Well, yes, because there's no conviction. There's not even a charge of insurrection. So, of course, they're going to, quote unquote, give Trump the win. Of course, because he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. He's just, he wasn't charged. He wasn't convicted of insurrection. So why in the world do people think that they can remove him from the ballot based off the 14th Amendment disqualification clause? It doesn't say that he has to be convicted, but at the same time, it doesn't say he doesn't say he has to be convicted, but at the same time, it says it doesn't. So logically, you would say, well, the other part of the Constitution kicks in, which is his right to a trial, his right to a speedy trial, his right to to mount a defense, excuse me. So yeah, he has every right to do that. So I don't know why people think, well, without a trial, without a conviction, we can all of a sudden try him and convict him, basically, and say, yeah, he's definitely guilty of an insurrection, even though there's no evidence for it. He hasn't even been charged. Because if he's been charged, then it's different. Even if he's been charged, he's been convicted. So they can't disqualify him based on that. I think, in my opinion, without a conviction. I'm hoping one day to have a lawyer on the show in order to give his opinion or her opinion. So far, I haven't found an attorney that's, that I know that would want to come on. But if there's an attorney out there to be interested in coming on, please let me know. On Twitter, you can DM me, you can email me. It's all, everything is, all my link trees in the description box. So if you're a lawyer, you want to come on, please tweet me or email me, whatever, and I'll definitely get to you. But now I want to get to online media, because online liberal professional left media, they've been melting down too. And the primary example of that is what I like to call the that's good. The Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski of the internet, Crystal Ball and Kyle Kalinske, the husband and wife duo, super geniuses here in their analysis. So I'm not gonna play this whole thing. It's 14 minutes, and I have to wrap up in like 10 minutes, but yeah, I'm gonna play some of it. I want to respond to some of their ridiculous points. In fact, I don't want to play this. Let's see.
To what's going on the ground there as well. Cousins who were just trying to get Supreme Court wise,
Here we go.
Trump wise,
go ahead and fill everybody in on that.
Yeah, so Trump actually scoring what is in effect a huge win for him in terms of delaying the election subversion case possibly beyond Election Day. The Supreme Court has decided to take up this preposterous, really, question of whether or not Trump has complete immunity for literally every...
Preposterous. You see, she automatically thinks it's preposterous without even hearing the arguments or without reading any of the points. Nope, it's preposterous.
Everything he did while he was president of the United States. And most legal analysts, although you can't guarantee, don't think they're going to ultimately side with him. If they did, that would be the wildest shit of all time, just like actually saying the president can do whatever they want and commit whatever crimes they want with no consequences whatsoever. But the key thing here is the delay that it will cause. So CNN reporting that they say they're going to take this up the week of April 22. That means the actual trial for this won't start, based on the previous comments of the judge and how they're going to handle the timeline, likely won't start till September, October at the earliest. So again, very possible this gets pushed beyond Election Day. Or, I mean, there is a possibility that then this trial is unfolding right in like peak election season, and all of the events of January 6th and the election subversion stuff, all the stop the steal, rigging that led up to that, could be put front and center in front of the American people just before the Election Day. That is a possibility. But for Trump, who doesn't have
100%.
a great legal argument here or in a variety of other cases, just pushing this thing...
Doesn't have a great legal argument. Well, Crystal Ball, the attorney, that's her legal opinion. So obviously, if she says that there's no legal argument here, then it must be true, right?
Off has been his strategy from the beginning.
Yeah, so the idea is Supreme Court takes this up, that delays the trial, kicks the can down the road, gives him an opportunity to win the election. Then if he's back in office, there is no dispute. You actually can't criminally charge a president who is currently sitting.
According to like DOJ guidance and memo, like it's not actually set in stone, but they would likely abide by that. And since it's federal charges, he can also pardon himself.
Pardon himself? This is insane.
And the other cases are not in great shape either.
U.S. presidents have, the pardon power. No president's ever tried to pardon himself, but that'd be an interesting argument whether the U.S. president can or cannot pardon himself.
Annie Willis one, right?
The only one that actually looks like it's really going forward full steam ahead is the New York one, which is the weakest one and has the lowest
because
level.
It's nonsense. That's why the Stormy Daniels case. It's nonsense. They're basically what that case is they're arguing that, well, because he paid hush money to Stormy Daniels, all of a sudden that has to be a campaign expense, and Donald Trump his campaign didn't put it down as a campaign expense. So it's a violation, and now we get to charge him over that. That's what the case is, and it's really weak because Donald Trump can argue, well, I mean, I paid that out of my personal money. I didn't pay that out of campaign funds, so there's no case here. So that's why they call it the weakest case, because it is the weakest case.
Level of charges, and they did have to do some like sort of creative legal justifications to raise that to the
That's
level of a
100%
felony.
true there.
That
What
one looks like it's about to
deconstruction said.
start. But the Georgia case is not in a great shape. They're, arguing over this affair that Fannie Willis had, and so that's ongoing and kind of not, we don't know what's going to happen.
An update on that case real quick. The judge, basically is done hearing testimony, and he's going to rule on whether Fannie Willis is disqualified in 2 weeks, approximately. So we're looking at mid-March before there's a judge rules on that. And if Fannie Willis is disqualified, it doesn't mean that the case is over. What it means is most likely it's a new prosecutor coming in, whether it's the Attorney General's office in Georgia or some other prosecutor. That's going to take time to figure out. So that delays that case even further, which obviously helps Trump.
What's going to happen there in terms of timing? The documents case down in Florida, he got a very sort
If
of
Fannie Willis isn't disqualified, then that means the case continues as is. So we'll see what happens there in about 2 weeks. Now they're going to talk about the other case.
Judge there who
So now they're going into conspiracy theory land, where the judge that appointed in the documents case was a Donald Trump appointee. So of course they're going to assume that she's going to be pro-Trump because she was appointed by Trump, which there's no evidence for this. But of course they're going to go into conspiracy theory land because that's what they do. They're just like Alex Jones. The only difference is Alex Jones is so much more entertaining.
That one is.
I think he appointed the judge, right? Eileen Cannon.
Yes, that one is very unlikely, from what I'm reading, to even start before before Election Day. So he's getting lucky in all these cases.
So, in other words, the case that, in my estimation, is the strongest, the Jack Smith.
No, that's not the strongest case. That could be the weakest case.
Case where I read through the entire indictment. Remember?
No, you didn't.
Tracy on the
I guarantee you he didn't read the entire indictment because Kyle Kulinski is extremely lazy. He doesn't read anything. He just basically what he does is read the headlines and then he does his commentary off of that and polling too, which is notoriously unreliable for the most part. That's not what he bases his political commentary on. I guarantee you he didn't read the whole indictment.
On the merits of that case.
The documents.
Yeah, I'm very no, I'm talking about the Jack
election
Smith.
Subversion.
Yeah, election subversion.
Those are both Jack Smith cases.
Yeah. Okay. But I remember as I was reading through it, I was like, this really seems like a strong case that he's made.
Yeah.
I thought people argued, oh, these are some novel interpretations, etc. But it's also a novel instance of a former president trying to effectively overthrow the election.
Which he didn't do. He didn't do. I mean, what world are these people living in? I mean, what's the point of being an online media if you're just going to parrot establishment talking points? What is the point? I don't understand. Why are they doing this? It's just for the money, I'm sure, because ultimately they're just reading. It's like they're reading talking points from MSNBC. I mean, this is ridiculous. Why are they an online media? Just go work for MSNBC. I'm sure they would love to hire bleach blonde boy here and his wife. His wife even worked for MSNBC at one point. So, what are they? I don't know. Oops. All right, here we go. I don't know what they're even talking about. Boogie. Calculate is like either I call him Evil Ken, like you do witchy, or I call him the peroxide has gone way too deep into his head. I don't, this guy is just, he. So yeah, I'll just keep going a little bit more, and then I'm done.
Election. So of course, by definition, some of it was going to be novel. But I remember thinking it was really, really, really strong. And then now what we're learning is
because I'm really, really desperate because I don't want Trump to be in the ballot in November.
They're basically kicking the can down the road to try to make it so that doesn't happen before Election Day, which kind of nullifies it in a sense.
Yeah,
right.
No,
it kind of nullifies it in a sense.
That's exactly right. And with regard to that case,
because they're not going to prosecute Trump if he loses. Because the whole point of prosecuting him, as somebody in the chat said, I forget who you are. David said it. I mean, it was 100% a political prosecution, and it is. If he loses, it's pointless. They're going to dismiss these cases because he's not a threat to them anymore. If he wins, they can't prosecute him because he's now the president again. So they have to drop the cases anyways. So it becomes pointless. Which is what makes them very angry because, again, like MSNBC, they want Trump prosecuted as soon as possible.
Case, I actually just recently saw a poll, and I'm skeptical of people aren't great at anticipating how they'll react to different eventualities. But this poll asked people about the specific cases, like, okay, if he's found guilty in the election subversion case, would you vote for him? If he's found guilty in the documents case, would you vote for him? And that was the one that actually had the biggest...
The elite, these elite people, they really do love to have people fight, the poor fight each other, and people and the populace fight each other. They really do. And they really do, which meanwhile, Kyle and Crystal here, they stay in their ivory towers while we all fight amongst ourselves for food and water or whatever resources that are left on this planet. Meanwhile, they sit, in their ivory tower, have everything they need. Because these two fuckers are multimillionaires. Crystal Ball is more of a multimillionaire than her husband, but he's a multimillionaire too with how successful his YouTube channel is and the thousands of views he gets per video. So yeah, these two assholes are multimillionaires, and they're multimillionaire podcasters who just repeat MSNBC talking points. So why in the world are they online? I don't know. Just have your agents call MSNBC and ask them for a job. That's all you need to do because they'll hire them. Actually, Crystal worked there once before.
This negative impact on him was the documents case, which I wouldn't have necessarily predicted, because I feel like the Stop the Steal stuff and January 6th,
The documents case is nonsense. And I'll go through it real quick because I mean, it's easy. The documents case is basically, if you remember, the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago, and they took all these documents that belonged to Trump because they belonged to Trump. They took all these documents and claimed that, oh no, it doesn't belong to Trump. It belongs to the federal government. It belongs to the Department of Archives, I believe it is. I forget exactly what the department is or the name of the department. But these documents are classified and they belong to the federal government, not Trump. Here's the thing: there's something called the Presidential Records Act. The Presidential Records Act is U.S. presidents basically have carte blanche in what they want to classify and what they don't. So that if Donald Trump claimed that he declassified all these files and they're his, which is why he took them all. The only thing that is not, that he can't declassify by himself is nuclear secrets, which is why Jack Smith charged him with hiding nuclear secrets and taking it with him, even though there's no evidence that he had nuclear secrets. But but that's why this case is nonsense, because if there were no nuclear secrets there, that case would most likely be dismissed pretty quickly. So that's part of the reason why the case has been delayed as well, because there's really no evidence for this, and the indictment's a waste of time. But then Crystal and Kyle acting like that's a real case, and it really isn't. Unless there's evidence that Trump had nuclear secrets, that's different. But as far as anybody knows, there's no nuclear secrets there. They were just random files that were classified at one point, and now they're not classified because Donald Trump declassified them. So that case is nonsense. But I'm gonna play a couple more minutes of this and then I'm done, because I'm not gonna play the whole 14 minutes because I don't want to bore my audience to death.
Like looms so large in terms of the horror that people who hate Trump feel about him being back in office. But it does make sense to me on another.
She said that is horror, that to imagine Trump back in office. That's that's the thing. They openly admitted, they don't want Trump back in office. They're scared to death of him. Not the populace, not the people for the most part, but they don't want Trump back in office, which is the elite, which these two belong to.
On another level, because the documents case is very clear cut, and it also
No, it's not. It's nonsense. But of course, they want to sell to their audience the documents case is real.
Speaks to something else that people hate about Trump, which is that he just feels like he's above it all, like the rules don't apply to him. Like he's both incredibly sloppy, but then also like very intentionally subversive.
All right, but he's been above the law most of his life. If you guys remember, his nickname is Teflon Don. Nothing sticks to this guy. He's basically been above the law most of his life. So the idea that the crystal ball is like, well, he thinks he's above the law. Well, he's been above the law most of his life. So why wouldn't you think that he's above the law? That makes no sense. Because we know that Trump isn't going to help us poors. No, of course not. I'm not, and I wouldn't suggest that he would. I'm just saying, they think that they're scared of Trump, not really the people. People are like, the people are going to do the same thing they did in 2016. If you vote for Trump, you're voting for him because you want to say fuck you to the establishment. Just like in 2016. Like there's no difference there. And a lot of Americans are sick of Joe Biden already. And we have another 10 months of his administration. Hopefully he doesn't get reelected. Even though I'm not voting for Trump, but I'm just hoping to God he's not going to get reelected. Because imagine an 82-year-old Joe Biden getting reelected. You know that he's going to be in office until 86. If he survives at all, he's going to be in office until 86. Imagine an 85, 86-year-old president walking like this, he has to hold on to one of his generals because he can't walk anymore. It's going to be a disaster. Another Joe Biden term is going to be a disaster.
Subverting the law in this instance and just thinks he can do it and get away with it because he's who he is. And so it was interesting to me that at least in this poll,
is Crystal Ball wearing a see-through blouse? I mean, I'm looking. Look, I'm a guy, and I was looking at her chest, and briefly, I'm like, is she wearing a see-through blouse? I mean, what it looks like, unless there's something underneath there. But whoa, okay. I mean, it's what look at her chest. It looks like a see-through blouse. All right, Yolanda, thank you for joining us. All Trump had to do was hand him back, but he was so arrogant that he thought that he had the right to keep him. It's not that he had him; he refused to hand him back. But Trump thinks he's above the law. Look, that's the argument that Jack Smith and the FBI are making. That he didn't hand these documents back, which is why they went after him. My argument is that he had the right to keep him under the Presidential Records Act because he said he declassified them. That's my argument. Look, we'll see. Most likely that case never be heard anyways because the trial won't start until after Election Day. But still, I mean, LOL, typical and very healthy man. Look, I mean, yeah, I mean, I know, I'm sure some people get mad at me for saying that, but she's wearing a see-through blouse. Unless there's something underneath there covering that up. I don't know, but I'm just saying.
People were saying, no, that's the one that I actually find to be the most damaging to him.
So two-tier justice system in the opposite way from what he means. Because when he says two-tier justice system, it's like, you guys are being extra hard on me.
Right.
And in reality, the two-tier is like, actually, they took away easy on you, bro.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You got away with a lot
Bro.
of
No private citizen would have
Bro,
gotten
bro, they took it easy on you, bro. But he sounds like a New Yorker. He is a New Yorker, but Tal definitely sounds like it there when he says, bro. They went way too easy on you, bro. He sounds like a New Yorker.
away with the document crap he pulled.
Definitely. So just so everybody understands, the Supreme Court taking up this case, right? Like you said, most experts think they'll swat it aside and be like, we're not siding with Trump. But just the fact that
Probably, to be fair, probably they'll say no. I mean, the president doesn't have carte blanche immunity, but they have every right to hear it because I think it's an open question whether presidents have immunity or not. We'll see.
This up is beyond absurd because Trump's argument is, I'm immune from literally anything and everything, which by its very nature means you're setting a precedent that somebody like Joe Biden would be immune from absolutely everything. And
well, yes, because he's a U.S. president, so that would be the precedent that's set, Kyle. I mean, I don't know why that's some kind of aha moment for you. Like, duh, he's a U.S. president, so yes, he would be immune from prosecution, just like Donald Trump would be, and just like Obama would be, and just like Bill Clinton would be, and just like George W. Bush would be. So what are you talking about? That's not some kind of aha moment. You got Trump. The thing is, Trump brands being an arrogant asshole. It's annoying, but it's not a crime. No, I mean that's been his brand his entire life. The man is a marketing genius and master. I mean, it's not often that you see somebody like Trump, like to the point where he's like he's an arrogant asshole, and he's able to build all these opulent buildings and live in an apartment full of gold, like his apartment in Trump Tower. So yeah, I mean that's what he built a reputation on. Trump is not a rich man for Alabama, Mississippi, Kansas, or any red state. He's from New York, 80% Dems. Trump was a former Democrat. Those people don't realize about Trump. For years, he donated to Democrats. He campaigned for Democrats. Hell, he donated to fucking Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton too when she ran for Senate. In fact, the Clintons went to his wedding with Melania back in the 90s. They went to his wedding. There's a photo of the Clintons together with Donald Trump and Melania at their wedding. So they're all friends. They were all best friends, hunky-dory, hanging out, singing Kumbaya. Now, because Trump dared to run against Hillary Clinton, all of a sudden they all hate each other. So they're all really good buddies until 2016.
And this is, okay, so the argument that they made in the hearing before it got to the Supreme Court,
8:35.
one of the judges asked, so what if the president's responsible for murder, like getting SEAL Team 6 to assassinate one of their political opponents? And the argument from Trump's side was, at first it was you literally can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Then it morphed into, when they realized that's not a tenable position, it was like, he needs to be impeached as president and then convicted on that impeachment in the Senate in order for there to be any consequences where after that you could maybe try them criminally.
Right.
Which is, as you pointed out, that's an insane standard. Joe Biden could...
Yes. These are lawyers. Yes, their opinion morphed. It depends on what the judge could ask them. So classic lawyerly thing is, oh well, I mean, yeah, you have to do this. Oh no, you don't like that. You don't like that argument. Okay, let me change it to this. That's what lawyers do. They change the argument depending on the judge. So Kyle's shocked by that. It's just ridiculous. But let me play another minute of this, and then I'll be done.
Biden could order an assassination of Donald Trump, step down before any impeachment hearings begin, and just get away with it scot-free.
That's right.
Guys,
Joe Biden doesn't have the mental capacity right now to order an assassination of anybody. I mean, the dude can barely function right now. So what are you talking about that he's going to order the assassination of Donald Trump? That's not a thing.
Game of Thrones level insanity. This is like total wild, wild west. Let's go back to the medieval times. Let's, do coups and have total immunity for the people who are at the top.
Whoa. Let me play that again.
Down before any impeachment hearings begin and just get away with it scot-free.
That's right.
Guys, this is Game of Thrones level insanity. This is like total wild, wild west.
Games of Thrones. These liberals love Game of Thrones. They love this show. They always quote it. They always talk about it. I didn't even like the show that much. I've watched the first few seasons, and then after that, it was like the last season was just awful. I mean, it was atrocious. I don't know how these people watched that last season and love it, but they obsessed with Game of Thrones.
West, let's go back to the medieval times. Let's, do coups and have total immunity for the people who are at the top.
Yep.
Yes, we do coups, and nobody get prosecuted for it. George W. Bush didn't get prosecuted. Clinton, Obama. Trump himself never been prosecuted for that because he tried a coup in Venezuela, if you remember, when he was president. And Biden has been prosecuted for that, even though obviously they attempted a coup on Russia with Navalny. There you go. They tried a coup in Russia too. It didn't work, but they tried a coup there too. They tried to coup Putin. So we've always done coups, and the president's always gotten away with it. Hell, there are times where the coups happen and the president doesn't even know. The CIA just acts on their own, like with no authority from the president. So yeah, so we always do coups, and there's never been prosecutions. So yeah,
this is, literally insane, absolutely insane.
Yes.
And this is what they're hearing. So I don't know if you
know.
know.
I completely agree with that. Trump was a public face of greed, wealth, and excess in the 80s. Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, I'm not denying that.
Answer this, but do you know which justices said? Like, yeah, we're going to hear that. Do we not know which justices?
I don't think that we know.
Okay.
From what I read, I haven't seen any names on. I don't think that we get information about which justices wanted to take it up and which didn't. But there had been some hope that they would just let the federal appeals court ruling stand.
Of course.
Because it was unanimous and because it was scathing. I mean, they were not close. The Republican justices.
Who cares? I don't care how the U.S. Court of Appeals ruled. The Supreme Court is the ultimate authority. So if they want to take up the case, then they have every right to take up the case. Like they should. The fact that the U.S. Court of Appeals ruled 3-0 doesn't mean anything. They can take up the case and they can say, no, we want to take up the case. We want to hear arguments. They have every right to do that. Just because the U.S. Court of Appeals ruled 3-0 doesn't mean anything.
This is a Democratic judge. Whoever they were appointed by, they were all like, this is fucking insane. And I think even the Trump team knew that this was sort of like a Hail Mary. But all they had to do
the delay tactic
was to get the Supreme Court just to agree to take it up. And the timeline is, like I said, April 22nd, they're going to hear oral arguments. Expectation is we get a decision by the end of June. The judge on the case has made some comments about the amount of time they want to give Trump to be able to prepare. That's why
constitutionally, he has the right to prepare for a trial. He has the right to mount a defense, and he needs time to prepare. It's not like you could say, let's say the Supreme Court rules against him in June. The trial starts July 15th. No, he needs time to prepare an adequate defense, because even if he's convicted, he can argue an appeal that he wasn't given adequate time to mount a defense. And any judge in an appeal would rule in his favor and order a new trial. So it's pointless. You have to give him time. Crystal Ball acts like, well, he shouldn't get the time, but they're going to give it to him anyways. That's what her suggestion is.
That's why people are saying, okay, we're looking at September, October. Then he's only one more,
Witchy, I mean, your chat's coming in kind of late here. Yeah, I mean, Well, I'm gonna probably play another 30 seconds of this or a minute, and then I'll be done.
Kind of a challenge away from it being after Election Day, and if he wins, that's it. So,
which is what they're scared to death of. All right, so you guys get the point. That's the liberal argument online, which is the same goddamn thing as as the MSNBC mainstream media. I think Crystal and Kyle perfectly encapsulates the professional left media online, because the Sam Cedar show basically did the same thing. The other shows, I forget what they're called, David Pakman and those fuckers online, the Young Turks, pretty much did the same thing. So they're all basically repeating from the same script. So I don't find it pointless. I find it pointless to play. Don't go around playing their shit, because Crystal and Kyle perfectly encapsulate what they have to say anyways. So, oh wow, it's almost 9. So yeah, I'm just gonna wrap up here this week. This is the end of the show. I appreciate everybody coming in and hanging out with me and checking out the show. If you haven't already, please like the show, please like the stream and subscribe. Tomorrow night is pro wrestling talk. If you're interested in that, it's going to be 8 o'clock Eastern with me and Witchy Perfect and a guest. I don't remember his name, so if you're in the chat, Witchy, please say his name so I could, say it. But yeah, there'll be definitely a guest tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Eastern, pro wrestling talk. And we'll be talking about pro wrestling. So, yeah, I mean, I appreciate everybody watching. Well, come check me out tomorrow night at 8 o'clock with Miss Witchy Perfect, Iced and Repo. And thank you, Fred. Appreciate that. Matt Collins is going to be the guest. Thank you very much. So just check us out tomorrow, 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 Pacific, wherever, you figure out your time zone. So thank you very much for watching. I'm going to see you guys tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Eastern for Pro Wrestling Talk, if you'd like that. If you don't, I'll see you next Friday for my show, Angel in the Afternoon, hopefully with a guest. The reason why I didn't have a guest real quick is because I reached out to people. They didn't want to come on. Thank you very much. I appreciate Yolanda. I appreciate Tina, too. I mean, thank you for hanging out with me. Please like if you haven't already. I've said that 10 times already, but yeah, it needs to be reminded. But the reason why I didn't have a guest, because I didn't, I reached out to people, they couldn't come on, and that's fine. I get it. So hopefully I have a guest next week, and then, we'll see. I'll announce throughout the week who it's going to be. But for now, I want to thank everybody for watching, and I'm going to see you guys tomorrow night for Pro Wrestling Talk. If you don't like pro wrestling, I'll see you guys next Friday. Have a nice weekend. Have a nice night.